the cosmos, seen through the eye of a massive telescope. The famous view of the Earth from the moon. The seasons that change as we go around the sun. How did we get to these mind-blowing and historical achievements? It is important that we question how we have gotten where we are today, to further expand our understanding of the universe. What initial exploration of thought happened in order to get to the modern understanding of the universe?
How did the encounter of the ideas and scientific proof from Galileo begin a conflict with the Catholic Church?
When did this encounter start and why?
How did the exchange of scientific proof of new ideas pave the way for contemporary and modern exploration?
All these questions can be answered, but in order to do so, we must go back to the year 1564, on February 15th, in Pisa, Italy. Here, Galileo Galilei, also known as the father of science, was born. This is also where the young Galileo grew up with his father Vincenzo Galilei, mother Giulia Amanti, and soon to be 7 other siblings. His father was a composer, music theorist, and a well-known musician during the time of the late Renaissance. In the fall of 1573, Galileo began to take classes with a local teacher by the name of Muzio Tedaldi. The next year, in 1574, Galileo's father interned him at the Vambrosa Monastery until the year 1578, when his father took Galileo out of the monastery after hearing of Galileo possibly wanting to take holy orders as a priest. With no room in their small house, Galileo was sent to Pisa to live with his cousin and learn to trade wool. After several years of selling wool, in the summer of 1581, Galileo enrolled to study medicine at the University of Pisa.
Galileo's early studies contributed to the development of his discoveries and theories. In 1583, Galileo enrolled at the University of Pisa to study priesthood. His professor during his time at the university was named Ostilio Rucci. Eventually, he quit studying priesthood to study medicine. However, he left the university due to financial difficulties in 1585, while on the path to becoming a professor. After leaving the University of Pisa, he supported himself with minor teaching jobs while continuing his study of mathematics. He began his study on objects in motion, which allowed him to write The Little Balance, which earned him a teaching position at the University of Pisa. While he was there, he conducted experiments with falling objects and wrote his manuscript, Du Motu, which means on motion. In 1592, his teaching contract at the University of Pisa was not renewed. However, he soon found a new teaching position at the University of Padua, teaching geometry, astronomy, and mechanics. He ended up remaining at the University of Padua, earning an 18-year tenure. In 1604, Galileo published The Operations of the Geometrical and Military Compass. Later that same year, he refined his studies to theories on motion and falling objects, and developed the universal law of acceleration. In 1609, Galileo created his first innovative model of the telescope, modeled after telescopes he had seen from Europe. His first model could only magnify up to 8 times, but he created another model later that year that could magnify up to 20 times. His telescope had a convex objective lens and a concave eyepiece and a long tube, but his field of view was too small. It was only about half the width of the moon. Using his telescope, Galileo was the first person to observe celestial objects and record his discoveries in his novel, The Starry Messenger. He discovered the craters on the moon, which contradicted the Aristotelian principles that the moon was smooth, even, and perfectly spherical. He also discovered the 4 moons of Jupiter with his telescope, and it was the first time a person had discovered objects orbiting another planet. Today, they are known as the Galilean satellites. He discovered the phases of Venus that were very similar to the phases of the moon, and his discovery led to his further support of the Copernican model of the universe. He discovered sunspots, which again contradicted the Aristotelian ideal of perfect cosmos. Galileo discovered 2 appendages on the sides of Saturn, but it was not until later that year that they were accurately described as rings. With the help of the telescope, Galileo made many celestial discoveries. Those discoveries led to his further support of the Copernican model of the universe, and Galileo began to openly express his support for the model. This contradicted the Church and Aristotelian views, which led to the overall conflict with the Catholic Church.
Galileo's newly supported ideas conflicted with the Church because the Church became informed of his support of the Copernican theory. It stated information about the Earth revolving around the Sun rather than the Sun revolving around the Earth. The Church called the scientists to Rome for an examination which lasted from September of 1632 to July of 1633. Most of the community treated him with respect, and the great scientist was never put in prison. He was convicted of heresy or the contradiction of a religion and was sentenced to house arrest, in which he served until the day he died.
He disregarded all orders to have any visitors or have any of his works printed outside of Italy. Galileo published writing while in house arrest called Dialogue Concerning Two New Sciences, a work about the principles of mechanics. It was about his life work, and when it was published in 1638, he had already moved back to Florence to be near doctors because Galileo had become blind and very ill. He later died on January 8, 1642, at the age of 77. Later on, the Church began to realize the truth of the theory. Galileo's work was unbanned in the 1800s and has been appreciated ever since. More recently, Pope John Paul II apologized to Galileo for the wrongdoing of the Church all those hundreds of years ago.
Though a great mind was technically gone from the earth, his work lived on through the continuation of his ideas in the field of science and philosophy. And it was because of the groundbreaking work of Galileo and his discoveries that we have developed a better understanding of modern science and the universe. His legacy lives on through scientists such as Albert Einstein and Isaac Newton. Now we have giant telescopes and satellites, such as the Hubble telescope, and takes breathtaking pictures of the surrounding galaxies. And now, when we look up at the night sky, we are able to imagine a whole nother world. Thanks to the father of science and humans' amazing ability to question the world around them, we will continue to explore even further.